your memories. Thought it'd be harder, but you make it easy. When you call, I'm on the road, let you go. But you keep telling me your love is like.
Hi, I'm Beks. I'm a pop singer-songwriter from Brisbane, Australia. I think the most defining part of my career in becoming Beks was being in the studio with my old band called Rackett. I used to be in a band that was an all-girl punk rock band, and we were in the studio recording our second EP. And I remember my best friend and my bass player, Ali, she went to the bathroom and she came back and she was in the vocal booth and she pulled out a positive pregnancy test. And I remember thinking in that moment, knowing that this moment would define the future for me, whether I could continue on without her. But I knew in myself that that was a sign that it was time for me to pursue my own solo career. So yeah, it was abrupt, but you know, the universe spoke and I had to listen. Well, becoming Beks was probably the biggest moment for me as an artist in owning what I do on my own 2 feet. I've always been in bands, I've always been part of a collective, and I love to collaborate, but becoming Beks and releasing music as an independent artist on my own has really shaped my ability to collaborate with other people outside the project. It's like Beks is home to me now, but it's given me the flexibility and the availability to do whatever I want when I want, and you know, not have to check for other people's schedules all the time. So as a result of that, I've made more music in the last 6 months than I have in my entire life. And in terms of the music that I make, defining my trajectory, when I released The Thing About Us, getting the response that I did with Home and Away, with you know, commercial radio, has really defined the trajectory that I now know is my path, and that is commercial pop music, that is top 40 music, and that is something that I've for a long time felt a lot of shame about wanting that, because coming from a punk rock background, it was always like alt is the way, like rebel against the system. But I see artists like Charlie XCX and Lady Gaga creating their own form of punk in that commercial pop lane, and that's what I want to do. And my music, the success of The Thing About Us, has informed me that that is the path that I will succeed in. Oh, I absolutely love fashion, and I feel that fashion and aesthetics are very tied with my music because they're just another form of expression. And I've been lucky to connect with an amazing designer in Brisbane called Kimberloo, who I don't work exclusively with, but I support because she is all about salvage materials and upcycling and, you know, avoiding fast fashion. But yeah, I mean, as I said, you know, fashion is an extension of music. It's another way to express yourself. The different tones, the different colors, the way that you walk into a room is going to communicate to a person what your interests are, what you may have in common. So I find that fashion is a language of being able to connect with other people and start conversations. I started the concept of Loud and Queer TV as, I guess, a selfish way to create something that I wanted. You know, when I was living in Sydney, my 2 favourite things to do was I'd go on Oxford Street and I'd go and see a drag show, then I'd pop into Oxford Art Factory, and I'd see a live band or a live artist, and then I'd finish the night back at Stonewall or at, you know, one of the other drag bars on Oxford Street. And I thought to myself, you know, that's what I want to create, an experience that is inclusive of both art forms. So I took the concept and I pitched it to Heaps Gay, and I pitched it to Create or Die, and I produced it, curated it, performed in it. And I think the biggest learning curve for me was learning about the queer community and learning about the dialogue. And I went in there as a very shy person, thinking that I was, you know, straight and I was just here as an ally. And I left that project as a queer artist because it helped me to learn about what being a queer artist is and how we define that. And being a queer artist to me is about my beliefs. It's about inclusivity and equality for everybody. And it's also about being just over the top and flamboyant and expressive all the time. So I think for me, it was a learning curve about my own sexuality, my own identity and my individuality, and also doing a lot of listening. I spent a lot of nights with Felicia Fox and learning and listening about the struggles and the challenges of being an artist in the LGBTQI community. So it was also a lot of sleepless nights. It was more work than I've ever done. We produced 2 seasons, over 60 LGBTQIA artists around the world, and it was aired on Sydney Gay and Lesbian Mardi Gras. So it was an achievement as an outsider that I really had no connection to the LGBTQI plus community, except that I love drag shows. And walking away from that, it gave me an understanding of that. I know that I'm waffling on, but there's so many dimensions to that project. I found that even the head honchos of that community, the gatekeepers of that community, were actually very resistant to inclusivity, that there was still an undercurrent of exclusivity. Like, if you weren't outwardly queer, if you weren't outwardly like sexual, then you weren't good enough. And those gates were closed to people in that community, even including me. As I stepped into myself as a queer artist, you know, I had to go through a lot of gatekeepers who told me, you're not queer, you're not good enough, you're not sexual enough, so we've come a long way, but there's still an element of exclusivity within the idea of inclusivity. Well, that's a really good question, because I'm not part of, the infrastructure of, say, Q Music, which is now my local union. For me, it would be nice to have more of a facilitated collaboration network or a program that allowed artists like me that have just come to Brisbane to tap into a infrastructure of songwriters and be able to introduce myself. But all I can say is, like, you just have to kind of take liberty and independently do it. For me, my process is, using Instagram and social media to track down the artists in my area that I love and reach out to them and just ask them if they'd be interested in writing with me. Obviously, funding is a big thing. Obviously, equality in terms of COVID restrictions and pandemic treatment of the music industry. That would be nice to see across, Australia, not just Brisbane, even in particular Sydney. But yeah. I think that COVID will push artists even further towards a digital environment. We're seeing more NFTs and artists like myself that are working predominantly in a digital world on TikTok, on social media, on Twitch, that will be there after COVID leaves. We will be heavily digitized. But I think that the flip side of that is that when live shows do happen, they will be more special. They will mean more. I'm hoping that that human experience will still exist within music while we continue to carve out a broader market in the digital sphere. The advice that I can give to any aspiring musician is to be prepared for the reality. And the reality of being an artist if that's what you want to do full time. And I'm going to, pause it there, is that the first thing is that you need to understand or have a very clear understanding of what you're actually trying to achieve with your music. Are you doing it for your own self-expression, or are you doing it to make a career? Because if you are doing it to make a career, the reality of being an artist in 2021 and beyond is that you have to be multifaceted. You have to be prepared that the song that you write is the least taxing job. The most taxing aspect of being an artist is producing content, learning about publishing, learning about syncing, learning how to collect your royalties, distribution, artwork, photos, digital media, video editing. I mean, you just have to be a 360 business and wear so many hats. So if you're an artist that's independent and you've got a fantastic song, unless you have the power or the motivation to do everything else that goes with it to market that product, which I hate to say a song is a product, but it is 100% a product. You have to have budget for someone else to do it, or good friends. But yeah, prepare for, really long days, and prepare that moment when you write that song is the sweetest, most precious moment of the whole process. And from there on, it's just a grind. I think dARTbase is going to streamline the process of going on Instagram and finding all of these individuals to create your music video with, to produce your song, to mix, to master, to market. And I'm just hoping that dARTbase will be able to give me more time to actually write music by having that network of other creatives in one hub that will save me time from searching for them in my area. The future months for Beks is it's releases. It's constantly creating. I've got a new single out, Devoted, on August 11th. I'll have, and I don't know when this goes to air, so that might already be out, so check it out. I'll have music videos, remix packs. Remix packs are something I'm really focused on at the moment. It's allowing me to go further into the dance world, further into the environment that I want my music to live, which is on dance floors. And I'm always writing, so I've got collaborations with artists and producers from all over the world. I've got an abundance of music that I've made that I'll be putting out regularly and consistently. I'll be, always evolving my looks and working on my live show and getting out there with my girl Party B and, ripping up dance floors and nightclubs Australia-wide. Fingers crossed.